evacuated too.
Yes, yeah. My family's been evacuated out of Sonoma.
Do you have any idea when you get to go home?
No, I don't. I'm hoping sometime next week, but I don't know.
Investigators say it could be weeks before they can pinpoint the exact cause of these fires. Elaine officials believe the fires here in Sonoma County should be fully contained by Friday.
Chris Martinez, thank you.
Izzy? Here, pup? Izzy? Somehow, the vineyards made it. Izzy! Toy structure still made it. Please. Tractor made it. The tractor is totally fine. Izzy's here. Izzy! Izzy! Izzy, come here, baby! God. Oh my God! Izzy! Oh my God! Hey, baby! Izzy, hi. She's a lover. She just wants to kiss on everybody.
Minutes now, which is good, from the Nimitz to the Bayshore and the Richmond-Santerville Bridge. Just a minor wait in some of the cash lanes. Overall, a nice commute into the North Bay. James?
All right, thank you, Robin. And as much as we've been covering the fires in the North Bay and now the one in Santa Cruz, I know stress is on the high side for a lot of folks, but we have this image here that hopefully will give you at least some feeling of optimism and some... Well, I don't know. I just hope it does, because these firefighters found this American flag.
When the Tubbs fire came racing down into Santa Rosa, Assistant Fire Marshal Paul Lowenthal was called into service.
I wouldn't have imagined we'd have something that big all of a sudden right here.
And as the fire continues to burn, officials are now turning their attention to making these neighborhoods safer. Santa Rosa's Fountain Grove neighborhood has been designated by the state as a very high fire hazard zone, requiring homeowners to clear brush and use fire-resistant materials on their roofs. But Coffey Park, a dense neighborhood, is considered a safe area with limited requirements. It now looks like this. Neither neighborhood could withstand a fire fueled by 80-mile-per-hour winds.
There's a lot of systems and codes that have been put in place to make it safer, to make it a safer environment. But Mother Nature brought wind.
This neighborhood is woven within California's wildland, a prime example of the state's suburban sprawl. In 1960, there were 766 homes within the perimeter of the Tubbs fire, compared to more than 6,000 in 2010.
I don't think anybody would have ever guessed that we'd have a...
But in wildland areas like this, it could take days, if not weeks. Hey, Anthony?
Mireya Villarreal in Santa Rosa. Thanks, Mireya.
Hey there, Leland, and we'll start with the good news. Authorities just came out and said they believe that they're getting the upper hand on these fires because the weather is now favorable for the first time. but there are still more than 200 people missing, and the death toll could continue to go up. So the cadaver dogs will be back out navigating these neighborhoods again today. Here in Santa Rosa, it really looks like more of a wasteland. The area is still evacuated. 75,000 people across this region not allowed to go back to see their homes or what's left, as authorities are trying to hit areas while emphasizing that conditions could change at any moment.
Listen to whatever the police chief or the fire chief tells you. The fire is unpredictable, depending upon the winds, depending on various factors. So this is a matter of expert opinion.
Day, and the fire crews on the front lines will be keeping a close eye out on those winds, and if they stir up, that could present potential problems. Also, this is an area that is driven by its wine industry. At least 8 wineries were destroyed by these fires earlier this week. The long-term economic impact of that, Leland, still not known because so many parts of this region still under evacuation. Leland.
Yeah, oftentimes it takes a few weeks to actually figure out the long-term impacts. Will Carr there, Santa Rosa, California. Will, thank you.
As thousands had to flee their homes for these wildfires, we're getting new video of the harrowing escapes made by, this case was a couple in the middle of the night. They were roommates, Mike Veen and Leighton Smith. They threw their dogs into their car. They took off through the flames and the smoke. This is the Cascade Fire near them. They captured their escape on this video.
We shouldn't be driving into this gorge.
Oh my God.
It's this meadow, dude.
I can't breathe. Come on, Expedition, baby. You can do it, girl.
We shouldn't have come this way.
This is our only option, dude. We couldn't have gone back. There was no way of going back. It was gonna blow right through our house.
My eyes are burning, man.
My eyes are burning too, dude, but we still got oxygen, so we're not dead yet.
We're on the road. We're on the road.
Dude, bust through that gate if we have to. I can't get out again, I guarantee it. My hands were burning going out there.
Leighton and their dogs did drive through that gate. They made it out unharmed. Their home, their possessions were all lost in the fire. Multiply this story by thousands, you get an idea of the devastating impact of these fires.
In this image, the mail truck still stopping at mailboxes. A haunting moment. This story was on the local news that night, and someone 50 miles away was watching.
I heard iron worker, and I looked over, and I caught his last name.
Her son was also an iron worker. She lost him to cancer 2 years ago. She had always saved her son's tools, and she called up Dana and said, come get them.
Dana?
Yes.
How are you?
Okay. How are you?
I'm good.
Inside, her son's tools given to Dana.
Means a lot to me.
Well, I only get you back to work.
She wants to get him back to work and California back to normal.
How cool is that? Heroes and bravery in the face of adversity, are thanks to David Muir. It was the late American writer James Lane Allen who said, adversity doesn't build character.
Whose truck overturned while delivering water to the fire lines. The wildfires destroyed some 5,700 homes and businesses. Maria Villarreal is in Santa Rosa, where a husband held his wife for hours in a pool, trying to keep her alive. Maria, good morning.
Well, good morning. Search and rescue crews are going through burnt-out homes just like this. They are looking for victims, and they are looking for hazardous material that might make it difficult for people to return home. We spoke with one woman who says her parents took refuge from the wildfires in a swimming pool for several hours. Only one of them made it out alive.
It was escape or die.
Monica Barris and her family were in her friend's Santa Rosa home enjoying an annual vacation when they smelled smoke.
And within a minute, there were 30-foot flames on both sides of the house.
It was after midnight. Monica's parents, Carmen and Armando, followed her in a convoy of cars. The firestorm made visibility so poor, she couldn't see that her parents' car got stuck behind her, forcing the couple to flee on foot into a nearby pool.
It was just a miracle that my father survived it. I wish my mom had had the stamina to make it just a little bit longer.
Armando suffered second-degree burns, holding on to his wife of 55 years in the pool for at least 5 hours until her lungs gave out.
She passed so peacefully in his arms, and he was so pleased that it wasn't anything but peace.
Carmen Barris is one of more than 40
Hey, baby. Oh, my God. Izzy, come here, baby. Oh, my God. Izzy. Oh, my God. Hey, baby. Oh, my God. Everything is gone. That's where the garage used to be. Table saw is still there. Or whatever that thing is. I'm not going to walk through this. It's pretty hot. Izzy's here.
A spokesperson for the hospital tells me the facility was built for disaster, but they haven't seen anything quite like this. As you will see, the facility here was surrounded by fires as evacuees came for shelter. The people working here at the time say they had to step into different roles to make sure that victims were taken care of. I spoke with a security guard who was working that night. He says he smelled smoke, but like many people, didn't think it was a major fire until he started seeing evacuees running into the hospital. And then, as you will see, the blaze was everywhere, all around the hospital. So employees took fire extinguishers and started basically acting as firefighters because at that point there weren't any here. And of course, while people that work here are helping those coming in, they're also worried about their own loved ones.
To be honest, my first knee-jerk reaction was I was afraid one of our people were caught out there. You know, there's a lot of people have died. It's a very upsetting event. And at that time, I didn't know that. I was just terrified somebody I knew, who I showed up to work with, who I talked about their life and my life, that something was going to happen and we were going to be responsible. So there was a lot of fear for that. I was concerned for my family. Definitely at certain points, I wanted to make sure everyone was okay. And, you know, I ended up being here all told about 17 hours. So, you know, we didn't have that opportunity that first night. And you know, there's just a lot of
pretty rural part of town where the fire hit, actually. Jerry Sprague knew Sharon for decades, though she does say she had fallen out of contact with her, fallen out of touch with her after she moved away from the street a few years ago. But she does say that Sharon had a grown daughter, and she thinks she remembers a grown son in the family as well. But mostly, she remembers how artistic Sharon was.
She was absolutely a lovely lady. She made clothing, and she took them around the country and showed them.
She also even taught art lessons. Jerry's daughter, when she was a kid, took art lessons from Sharon. She says she taught her to be patient and not frustrated with the art that she was creating. She also loved cats and, as I said earlier, made everyone feel comfortable. One of those calming influences. I think that's a very special attribute that someone can have. Sharon Robinson.
Back into Calistoga, welcomed by signs on Sunday.
Very happy to be home.
Very excited. I want to go see my house and my bed. People were forced to abandon their homes and businesses that were fortunately spared by the destructive Tubbs fire that erupted last Sunday. Now that power has been restored and the fire has moved away from the area, evacuees are allowed to repopulate their tree-lined streets as of 2 in the afternoon. But the pain over the ordeal lingers. This is probably the most catastrophic event I've ever been through in my life, and I think it will leave a mark on the community. And contained 3,700 firefighters are still working to put it out.
Just past the roadblock on Sassoon Valley Road in Fairfield Wednesday morning. Hot, scorching, dangerous flames devouring the side of the road. I certainly did not Atlas fire, and this fire is fierce and stubborn and not going away easily. Have you ever seen fire like this before?
No, ma'am. I've been doing this 30 years.
I caught up with Captain Sam Lubisi and his crew, an assortment of firefighters from all over the Bay Area, as they were awaiting orders. What's the challenge today, Captain?
Today we're in red flag warning, expecting winds 30, 40 miles an hour, possibly over 50.
As I interviewed the captain, in the distance, air tankers and helicopters worked at a frantic pace. The predicted winds a real problem for the air assault.
Are limited when the winds get really high. That's
a top priority for Lubisi and this group as the fire continues to spread, defying anyone to stop it. What are you going to do to try and save them?
Structure protection. We go out, we evaluate every structure, and we call a tactic. It's called bump and run.
And explain that.
Bump and run is we go to one house, take care of it, and we move on to the next.
Okay, checking for defensive space, what?
Exactly. Defensive space, we triage, we pick, it's hard to say it, but winners and losers. Some houses we just can't defend.
Most of the homes evacuated. Lubisi says that the team is tired but committed to see this through.
Yes, our strike team's been going for 3 days straight and almost no rest. And we got a little rest last night, and we're ready to go. So could be another 3 days, who knows, but we're good to go until
towards recovery mode. It's a day I have looked forward to for a week.
An historically deadly and destructive week in Napa County that ends on a positive note. For 4 of the past 6 days, the Napa Valley was under a red flag warning. But as of early Sunday morning, that is no longer the case. Napa County Fire Chief Barry Bierman says the weather has taken a turn for the better. Firefighters are still working in extremely dry conditions with low humidity, but the wind isn't kicking up like it has been. So crews are inching closer to getting the upper hand on the Atlas fire.
Little to no growth is occurring right now. We have basically line all the way around the fire, and we're continuing to mop up, and we will get further containment as things go on.
On Sunday, Bierman saying the Nuns fire was a priority since so much progress has been made on the Atlas fire.
We're working this area of Dry Creek, Mount Veeder Road, up into Rutherford as the fire continues to come down off the Highway 29 corridor. So this is all on the west side of Highway 29.
The Tubbs fire continues to burn, though Chief Bierman says it doesn't appear homes are in imminent danger.
And I do not anticipate, with our current conditions, that it will make it into the town of Calistoga.
Emergency crews are now working towards allowing people back into their neighborhoods at some point for those whose homes are still standing, but some road closures will continue until then, wrapping up an emotionally taxing week for fire victims and their local leaders.
I look forward to the day that this can be a distant memory in which we recall that we were resilient and that we got through this together. Be well, Napa, and be safe.
1 week down, countless many more to go. In Napa County, Philippe Jagal.
President Kevin Holman has a tale to tell about the wildfires.
So I went up there and it was just chaos. There was fire everywhere and people saved.
In something akin to Paul Revere's famous ride, much of it captured on his cell phone, Holman rode his motorcycle into the flames on Monday, scouting the fire's path, sounding the alarm.
Yeah, that was a little difficult to do, a little scary, but I figured, hey, we need to see this. People need to see it. They need to see the footage of it because it was just insane. I was blown away.
This is dramatic video of Holman's ride through Wild Horse Ranch Road and Green Valley Road in the skyline.
8 to 10 homes, like on the homes, and then we stopped fire from coming down the inside of the valley, and who knows how many homes were down there.
The firefighters got there.
And those people were just up there fighting for their homes. There was no evacuation at all. I didn't see a single city representative. I didn't see...
Recovery, too, once the fire is out.
I grew up here, and there's a lot of good people here, and you can see it everywhere you go. People are helping. I was at certain places today with donations for animals and shelters and different things. I saw a lot of stuff today, and they're full of donations and people helping. We're going to bounce back.
Well, up next, our fire coverage will take us to an organic farm in Sonoma County. It's been devastated by the fire, but see why the owners say they will be up and running again in a matter of weeks.
And new tonight at 8, we have new tonight at 8, we have some terrifying video as 2 roommates nearly get trapped in one of the Northern California fires. See how...
I'm sorry, one of your cats passed?
Yeah, one of my pets. I was hoping we could go home before that happened, but, you know.
Brenda lost one of her cats to the Atlas wildfire. Her family lives here off Suisun Valley Road near the Green Valley area in Solano County, northwest of Fairfield. They returned home after 1 week of sleeping in their cars and at shelters.
But we got home and we're all safe and everything, and people have lost more than we have. And my heart goes out to them.
Their home was spared, no damage. The cat, who was staying with a friend at the time, they believe died of starvation. But other animals that they were able to take with them when they evacuated did survive. However, it made it extra challenging having these animals with them living in their cars.
The part for me that sucked was I have a 90-pound pit bull that has car anxiety.
So being in a car for a week was not fun for him. And so we had a bird, we have a disabled African gray, 3 cats, 2 dogs, and us in the cars.
A couple miles up into the hills from these people's homes, the fire got really close to them. You can see the scorched earth, just black from the Atlas fire. Wooden Valley Road here acted as a fire line. The left side of the street is burned. On the right side, there's like pristine vegetation, vineyards that seem untouched. However, if you look closer, some embers did make it over onto the hills up here and burned the grass. I saw this everywhere in Solano County and Napa County. The beautiful golden rolling hills of California right next to burnt black hills. This is a visual residents up here will be seeing for quite a while. In Solano County, Gabe Slate.
Oh, here's the cattle.
Yep.
Here, cows. For Melissa and Austin Laley, it was painful seeing their 40 acres of Be Well farms go up in smoke in the Sonoma County town of Glen Ellen. They lost everything, including their power. And without electricity, no water. All the PVC, there was about
12 cows and about 350 chickens.
And a couple goats.
And 2 goats.
And as long as they have livestock, they can rebuild their lives. And despite all the extensive damage and destruction here, there is hope and there is help on the way in the form of state and federal assistance. Fire victims can now register for disaster assistance through FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
There is more money being added. It's not going to be enough, though, and so Kamala and I are going to have to go to work.
But for farmers like the Laleys, there is no time to reflect on all they have lost. Is it too soon to even think about getting back into business?
We'll be pulling up drip tape next week and then turning the fields under.
Temporary setback, but we should be up and running before we know it.
In Sonoma County, Mike Lurie.
This new video released by the Berkeley Fire Department showing what those with Engine 6 experienced when they were called to the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa early Monday morning.
Wow. Pretty big flames over there.
They made their way to Santa Rosa along Highway 101 with a strike team that included 4 other trucks and a leader. Miles before they arrived, they could see the glow of flames coming from Santa Rosa. The plan was to meet in the Kmart parking lot where they would get their assignment. But the Kmart was fully engulfed in flames, so they moved on. To the right and left, firefighters could see flames. At one point, the crew was stationed outside a gas station that was also fully engulfed in flames.
I can actually feel that heat, Kyle.
Minutes later, the strike team was driving. They weren't initially sure what they were looking at here, but soon learned it was homes that had burned to the ground. At one point, firefighters found a row of unburned homes, set their truck up, and ran 5 water lines off that truck. The crew says the 30 or so homes behind them did not burn. They're happy to have helped, but wish they could have saved more. In fact, the company later learned that one of the homes that burned here belonged to one of their firefighters.
You're gonna have to cut to the left. That's all the gate. Open the gate. I can't breathe. We're gonna die, dude. We gotta get out of here. Let it blow by. Just let it blow by. I couldn't breathe, dude.
At the various images that we've seen coming through this weekend with fires still burning and neighborhoods devastated. And as we said, the pieces will have to start getting picked up. Starting today for some.
And looking at the different vantage points, let's go live to Will Tran. He was out early this morning in Oakville near the Robert Mondavi Winery. And it's hard to believe, Will, that on day 8 you could still see flames in the dark over your shoulder. Now in the daylight, it looks like smoke.
smoky in certain parts, still large orange flames in other areas. You can see the wineries right behind me. Look at the grapes, the rows and rows of grapes. And the winery is still open for business as far as work is concerned, believe it or not. And I'll show that to you in just a little bit. So let me step out of the way and let me zoom in and show you what's going on. So you can see there's the fire right there, and it still continues to burn. Although at this point, it looks like now it's dying down just a bit, a little bit smoky because the wind is starting to pick up a little bit, but not too bad, especially what we saw from what we saw last Monday. So I'll take this any day. But now that the sun is up, James and Daria, I get a better look, believe it or not, as opposed to those dark, the dark sky against the orange ball of fire. Well, now that the sun is up, I can really see the hillside. So there's the fire, right? And then you move along over here and you can still see smoke in the air blowing from the right to the left side of your screen. It looks like a rugged area. I don't see any roads leading up to it. Over the past 10 minutes or so, I did see some fire trucks race by here, make a right turn, and possibly up that roadway. On the other side of the trees, that's the winery. That's the roadway. That's the roadway that they still have employees driving down to. And then I did see some deliveries taking place. Highway 29 is over here, just to give you the lay of the land. Remember I talked about how there could be some new emergency paramedics, the first responders. There it is, guys. So now that they're up now, they can clearly see it just like I can. You can see there's an emergency, a first responder racing down Highway 29. I would imagine doing the same thing as the other crews did, make a right turn and try to make it up that hill. As far as the fire is concerned, you can see it is there, but we've been monitoring this, and I've been going live from this location pretty much for the last 90 minutes. Is it just my imagination, guys, or do you think this fire seems to be dying down just a bit for now? And now that the sun is up, I would not be surprised if they go up in the air and drop some fire retardant on it.
Well, that would be good, but what shocked me, Will, more than anything, in the dark, I saw the glow of the flames, but now you're panning back and forth. I get the size. It looks bigger than I thought, because in the light, you can see just how far it stretches over that mountain.
Yeah, look at that. So it's on that hillside. At first, I mean, you focus obviously on the orange glow. That's what catches your eye. But now that the sun is up, you can not only see the orange glow, you can see the topography. You can see the hillside. And it's a massive hillside, and there is a bed of smoke, a blanket of smoke all over this hillside that stretches as far as I can possibly see. The good news is the authorities, they've done such a wonderful job. They know of lives or structures or damage. So if there's anything, they would shut down this freeway. So let this freeway, Highway 29, at least tell you, at least at this particular point, they have a handle on things. We did show that first responder racing by the scene, but at least the sense of urgency, what we saw just a couple of days ago, at least that urgency has died down just a bit, guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the story today, the containment numbers are so much better. Yeah. But I feel like KRON 4, a lot of other stations will just hit this breaking news, and then like a day like today, oh, it's been 8 days, containment's better, let's just forget about it.
No.
And they just it was like a story they covered, and it's gone. It's not gone.
It is not
it's
gone.
still our big story, and it's all that we're covering here on the KRON 4 Morning News.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, and you just saw Will with his live camera looking at those hills on fire.
Yeah.
That's that hill, that line of hills that separate the Napa and the Sonoma Valleys. And actually, directly on the other side of that ridge line is where we have KRON 4's Camila Bernal. She's along Highway 12 up near Kenwood. And so, Camila, tell us, what are you seeing from your vantage point on the other side of those flames that Will was just showing us?
Good morning. So I just actually drove a little bit north from Highway 12 on Adobe Canyon Road to see if I could get a better view of the flames. And I do have a better view of the flames up there, but right now, again, they're covered in smoke. But those flames are up there on that mountain. As you just saw, first responders driving towards that mountain because that's where that fire is. If you take a look at the video that we captured overnight, you'll be able to have a better picture of those flames. That is the Nuns fire. It's burned about 50,000 1,000 acres in this area, and it's only about 40% contained. It's a better number than what we've been reporting all week, but it's still, not even halfway there. The fire activity in the mountain behind me is moderate, so a lot better than active, but they still have a lot of work to be done. Here in this area, the Oakmont fire is very nearby as well. It's almost 600 acres that are burned for that fire, and it's only 15% contained, so a lot more work on the Oakmont fire, and it's very active. Firefighters are telling us that that fire in particular is smaller but a lot more active than the other fires. Both of these fires are traveling north up into these mountains, and so of course firefighters continue to go up there. They say it's a lot harder to travel up north and into those mountains than when it was, closer to the people. So the good news is that it's not close to the people and the homes, but the bad news is that it's a lot harder for those firefighters.
This is new video released by the Berkeley Fire Department showing what those with Engine 6 experienced when they were called to the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa early Monday morning.
Wow, perfect flames over there.
They made their way to Santa Rosa along Highway 101 with a strike team that included 4 other trucks and a leader. Miles before they arrived, they could see the glow of flames coming from Santa Rosa. The plan was to meet in the Kmart parking lot where they would get their assignment. But the Kmart was fully engulfed in flames, so they moved on. To the right and left, firefighters could see flames. At one point, the crew was stationed outside a gas station that was also fully engulfed in flames.
I can actually feel that heat, Kyle.
Minutes later, the strike team was driving. They weren't initially sure what they were looking at here, but soon learned it was homes that had burned to the ground. At one point, firefighters found a row of unburned homes, set their truck up, and ran 5 water lines off that truck. The crew says the 30 or so homes behind them did not burn. They're happy to have helped, but wish they could have saved more. In fact, the company later learned that one of the homes that burned here belonged to one of their...
Hey guys, good morning. So I actually have a little bit of updated information. I'm with Dominic Polito with CAL FIRE, and he has new numbers. So let's just get right into it. What are the new numbers, and what can we say?
We're at a total acreage of 97,781 for the entire complex. As far as the Nuns Fire, where we are right now, we're at 48,627. And a lot of the other numbers are the same as far as the number of personnel on the fire and whatnot.
And we have gained some more containment of basically all of the fires except the Oakmont.
Correct. Yeah. The current containment, the Tubbs fire, we're at 70%. The Pocket fire, we're at 40%. The Nuns fire, we're at 50%. The Oakmont's at 15%. So we are actually increasing on the Oakmont, but it has grown in size as well.
Okay. So is it a lot of good news? What are we looking forward to?
Okay, so the good news is the wind has died down. Okay, this was a wind-driven fire. If you have 40 to 60 mile per hour winds, you have 40, 60 mile per hour fire. Okay, so those have died down. And so that's in our favor. Unfortunately, today it's going to be hotter, and the precipitation and the percentage of humidity is still very low. So the fire conditions are still very available, but they're not wind-driven. So that will give us a heads up on attacking the fire.
And tell me about the guys up there. You know, there's so many of them who are putting their lives in danger for all of us. Are they tired? What's the status on the crews?
Yeah, they're tired, but they're tough. You know, they're made for this. They get into this because they like it and because they enjoy serving the community, and we're all here to help. Yeah, with the increase in personnel, we are getting a better handle on Adobe. Right now, you'll see fire engines parked in front of each structure with hoses wrapped around. They've scratched line. They've cleaned out all the extra ornamental vegetation, the things that would catch the house on fire, and they're prepping all the structures.
So good news for the families in this area. Should they still be alert? You know, you just never know, or is it kind of you're on the safe side now?
No, you should always be alert. Things are ever changing. Weather's ever changing. This fire is ever changing. So just keep a heads up. If you are in a warning area, then you need to be prepared. Have your go bags. Have everything prepared to leave. If you get that evacuation notice.
Are now
when we're we're on these 24-hour shifts, the hardest thing for me is trying to stay awake as I'm driving. And that was one of the guys that I spoke to yesterday, was definitely the hardest for them. Back here, I am about a couple of miles north there. We took some video this morning of the flames, and they were very visible earlier on in the day. 50,000 acres, so that is still contained. So that fire has burned about 875 acres, but it's only 15% contained, so there's still a lot of work to be done, and it's still very active. Both of these fires are moving north, so the firefighters are also moving north, trying to contain both of these fires. Now, back here in the area that I am at, I just spoke to a sheriff deputy who is knocking on the doors. These houses are supposed to be evacuated, and many have not evacuated, so they're asking that if you do live in this area, you leave. They're asking you nicely. He told me, you know, this is like my 4th time up here, so they've been here already 4 times, knocking on doors with their sirens on, telling people to evacuate. So that's very important. If you are in this area, they're asking you to do it for your own safety and for the safety of the firefighters that are here.
Grade, and it twists and turns just to get to this location. This is about maybe a mile and a half being handled by the CHP. They have shut down this area. Unfortunately, because of the crash, he landed on the roof of his car down the embankment, and he died at the scene. Not exactly speed near the area, although that's highly unlikely. This is an area controlled by CAL FIRE as well as the CHP. Off in the distance, there's the hillside. That's the Nuns fire. So it looks like he might have been coming down possibly at the end of his shift, or looking to refill water to come right back up, when for whatever reason he could not make the turn. And you can see the curve right there. He could not make the turn and then goes off the road down the embankment. His name not being released at this time. It appears that he was the only person in the water truck at the time, but we understand that he was a firefighter contracted with CAL FIRE to do the water service, hopefully to get more information on exactly what happened, and at the very least to try to get his name. If his I'm sure his family needs to be notified, of course, before we are told, but this happened about 90 minutes ago, and the firefighters are here. It's a very sad scene. You can see the CHP as well. The last thing they want is
she's here, but FEMA will be there to help you with some income tax relief, some business relief. All the major counties, Sonoma, Napa, Butte, Lake, Mendocino, and Yuba counties have all been designated counties that get FEMA insurance. So you get low interest loans, you get coverage for uninsured items. They'll help clean up some of the toxic damage on your property. They'll help cover some of the personal property, cars, replacing homes, issues that fall through the cracks. All fire victims need to file a claim with FEMA. Again, first come, first serve. Disasterassistance.gov. Disasterassistance.gov is a great place to start. There's an 800 number that I'm sure you can Google FEMA and find it. I won't throw it out here because I don't have it up on the screen. But also, even your property tax, your home's burned.
Later last week, on Friday, Alexis Pattis, one of the daughter of the family, she decided, you know what, I need to go back. I'm going to get some family valuables and things like that. And she happened to get a call from someone who said they had a sales rep with some gel-based fire retardant that's meant for homes, and that she could pick some up from that representative in Sonoma. So she did. She went out to Sonoma to meet a man who was offering that gel-based retardant, and he went above and beyond, giving her that property-saving chemical.
He truly is our guardian angel. He came up with me. He helped me block vents in case embers got in the area. He helped me block out the certain trees that were kind of near the house that might be a problem if that fire got near. He helped me, actually brought a chainsaw and helped me cut down certain tree branches that might be.
The north, some of the other fires are also burning to the north at a moderate pace. Firefighters have made good progress over the last few days. They said at the press conference today that they are now fighting pockets of fire in some remote acres kind of up in the hills. But they're very concerned. The State Route 12 here, Highway 12 between Santa Rosa and Sonoma is closed, but it is busy with activity. There are fire crews from all over the state, all over the west, going back and forth here. I've seen crews also looking for any hot spots where the embers might have come down and started a new fire down closer to the road. So they are very actively fighting this fire right now. They've got bulldozers out there trying to get containment lines around this fire and the other fires. They did say today at the briefing that their fire had jumped their bulldozer lines a couple of times today, but they were able to get in there and get those fires.
This
is video from early Sunday morning as the Tubbs fire ripped through Mark West Springs Road in Santa Rosa. Jennifer Arrington and her son Tommy, who live there, were forced out of their home at 1:30 in the morning.
So we went outside and saw the fire and started to evacuate ourselves. And then we met the sheriffs at the bottom of our driveway, and he told us there wasn't a way out and to go to Mark West Lodge.
A Sonoma County Sheriff's deputy led them along with 30 others into this lodge parking lot where they waited in their cars for 5 hours, hoping the flames wouldn't consume them.
It was exciting, hopeful, and as well nerve-wracking again because it's an experience that no one will never have unless you were in the same without them.
The family wants to find and thank that deputy for staying behind and helping out. In Sonoma.
What is this? What's this facility like? You have more than 100 people staying here at last check, right?
Yeah, last night we had 110 people. This facility is kind of unique because the community center is really large, so we're reluctant to evacuate if they can't bring their pets. So we have a room here, that's the cat room, where people have their cats with them. I was decided that I'd go up and visit and notice the cats were all in crates, so I asked them why, and they said they had decided on their own that they are calmer when they're with their animals, and I think, and it's hard on the animals too. And morning, who had been evacuated motel and gotten along, they'd gone back home and they thought, it's over. And apparently early this morning FEMA has been right here on site, so FEMA registered them. We actually have volunteers here who are mental.
Shock has worn off maybe this week for some people, and the reality is sinking in.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. But it's just incredible, the way that some people...
First time being back on the grounds since it burned.
It's like you feel like you're in an apocalypse or something. It's just like takes every word out of your mouth. My son's girlfriend lives in that neighborhood.
This is the neighborhood she is talking about. Hundreds of houses around the school off Mark West Springs Road, gone. All burned down.
The stories we're hearing is just like people had 5 minutes to get out of there.
Is going to resume classes at a local church temporarily beginning on Wednesday. They are going to rebuild the school in the same spot. They think it's a good omen that the rock sign that welcomes people to the school off the main road survived. But their name, Redwood, is what's really inspiring them.
And we have a lot of redwoods on this campus. And the cool thing about redwoods is that they're made to endure fire. And so we were just talking about how our school family, we're made for this. Like, we can handle this, and we're going to come back. And when a redwood dies and is burnt, it comes back with more. And it comes back better because that one tree may have died, but then there's a whole bunch more that sprout out from the bottom. And so, it is going to be a struggle. There's a lot.
That there are pockets of fire, acres here and there, that are burning in some of the remote areas. And this fire, along with some of the other fires in the region, are moving at a moderate pace. Said earlier today that the fire actually jumped one of the dozer lines that they had created, burned about 30 acres. They were able to bring that under control, and now they're building a bigger ring of dozer lines.
This one is burning right now in the Santa Cruz Mountains. It started with a house fire, but this is the story, right? They live out, in the country areas and windy roads, lots of trees, they're all dry, and this thing just blew up really quickly. When we first heard it, it was, 10, 20 acres, and now it's 125 acres.
Yeah, fairly large in size, still growing, 150 evacuations right now. In all, I think it was about 125 acres was the estimate from CAL FIRE early this morning.
Yeah.
We've got Will Tran out there, and we're going to get updated on the latest with this from him in a live report.
Believe that they are safe for now. We saw them at the foot of the hill, and you can see the fire continues to burn and has been burning in the overnight hours. It looks like it's died down just a little bit. It is smoky in here, no doubt about it. There are embers in the air. I can see the smoke going up to the sky, moving from the center of your screen to the left portion of your screen. See, I'm losing my voice already because of the smoky conditions. Now, I can tell you 125 homes are threatened at this, 125 acres have burned. A little more than 100 homes are threatened, which is why they're right next to the flames with the hoses at this particular time. We'll try to get a little bit more information on that. So possibly 2 firefighters altogether. As far as the evacuations, they took place very orderly. This is a very windy, narrow road, many roads just like this in the Santa Cruz Mountains, but they were able to evacuate those people. Many of those people are just a few miles off of Highway 17, standing staying next to checkpoints, talking to the investigators, talking to the police officers, getting an update on their homes. I can tell you right now, other than one home that was destroyed, one structure that was destroyed, all the other homes, even though they were new, dry vegetation and move in that direction, but at least at
trucks would have been. I don't know if there were any in there. They were probably out fighting the blazes, but as you can see, the building completely destroyed. Hundreds of homes around here also completely decimated. Let's show you some picture from this morning. This one that you're looking at is actually more upright than a lot of the homes around it. Believe it or not, what was actually, or what used to be a bus and trailer home park nearby is, and sad to think about how many families have lost everything and will have to start over. We're learning that Sutter is opening its doors this morning. So
a Cal Fire firefighter fell down about 50 feet down a ravine, and right now they are working to rescue him. They're using ropes. He fell down so hard, and in the middle of the night, obviously it's still dark here, that he suffered a broken wrist. He has facial lacerations, so cuts to his face. He appears to be okay. They are talking to him, but it's in an area that is hard to reach, so they have to rappel down there using rope, get him back up, and they don't know how close they are to doing that mission. And then once that happens, they'll take him to the hospital to be checked out. It does not appear at this time there are life-threatening injuries, but of course with the fires still raging on the hillside, they want to remove him as quickly as possible. It does not appear that he is surrounded by fire at this time. Possibly he lost his step because it was dark. There was treacherous. Let's face it, it's a rugged, remote area of the Santa Cruz Mountains in this particular area, and with no lights, that makes it even tougher to get around. So he fell down 50 feet, broke his wrist, cuts to his face, and once again,
burned down to the ground. Some restaurants, although a lot of businesses survived. Kaiser, which is right across the street from the Hilton, which was burned down. Kaiser was saved, apart from a couple of patio umbrellas that melted. Again, hundreds of homes around here completely decimated. A trailer home park gone. You see cars that are melted like plastic. It's almost hard to believe that there was ever anything here. A lot of roadblocks in this area to be aware of. The National Guard is patrolling as first responders are starting to clean up and to make sure that a lot
massive, and it's easier to see today than yesterday. Yesterday they were kind of just covered by the smoke. Today you can see those flames along the mountain, and it's now specifically it's about 51,500 acres burned, and at the moment it's only 53% contained. So it's better than what we've been telling you before, but it's still very close to halfway contained. So there's still a lot of acreage that is burning at the moment, and some evacuations have reduced because it is away from the people and into the mountains. But take a look at those flames right there. I mean, it's just impressive, and it's just, you see those orange and you see it burning and you see it up there on the mountain, so it becomes a lot more real when you're able to see those. I mean, and if you want to see active, you're just looking at it, because those are the flames of this fire, of this Nuns fire, and the firefighters, you can still kind of see it back there, so it doesn't mean, it's are still there, and they outline the entire mountain. And I'm just looking at a big, and they tell me that, the good news is that it's removed from the people. The bad news is that it's a lot harder to get up there at the top of that mountain where the fire is burning. All throughout the morning I've seen those flames, and they just grow. I can't say the fire is growing, I'm not sure, but the flames are definitely growing, and they're easy to see when you're down here. I am very close to St. Francis Vineyard, and it's right off of Highway 12, and this fire is actually moving north.
We actually have video of that for you, surveillance video in a time lapse. As you will see people running out of there. The hospital says it safely evacuated 77 patients within 6 evacuate patients safely, but there was also fire evacuees coming to the hospital looking until help could come. They said the fire was very close to some oxygen tanks, so they grabbed fire extinguishers to keep the flame at bay as much as possible. We're told the
This broke out at around 11 o'clock last night. Initially, they told us 30 acres, but it exploded despite lack of wood acres. And I talked to CAL FIRE, and they said once the sun is up and it gets a little bit brighter, they will take to the sky, possibly drop some water down to the fire because it's a very hard to reach area. Once they do that, they'll also be able to get an aerial view of the fire, and that 125 acres burned, that number expected to go up. Fortunately, no fatalities at this point. One structure, you talked about it, one structure was destroyed. There are about 100 homes that are threatened by this, but not eminently threatened. But they told those people to evacuate nonetheless, just for their safety and so they can get out of the way. They are bringing more CAL FIRE crews here, more trucks to get to this location in case they need it, and in case there are not enough firefighters already locally within the vicinity. They say they are capable of asking firefighters in the North Bay, which are scaling down operations just a bit. They're capable of asking those firefighters to get in their fire trucks and come down here and help out with the firefighting efforts. If we can head back out live now, let me show you. This is Bear Creek Canyon. You can see it's burning right now. It looks like it's no homes in that particular area. I see Eviolia Seves. It's kind of hard for us in our location to zoom in, but right at the bottom, say around the bottom corner, right corner of your screen, you might be able to make out some lights. So I do see some firefighter trucks on the ground at the phone. They're not taking any chances. When we interview them at 5 o'clock in the morning, I've done fires for a long time.
Jared broke his wrist after falling down a 50-foot ravine. Then we had an inmate firefighter who was forced off the line after succumbing to smoke inhalation this morning.
So now fires on two fronts here. We've got the fire in the Santa Cruz Mountains and day 9 of the North Bay fire.
Will?
The fire continues to burn. As I promised, CAL FIRE would have a news conference. I'm hearing that 3 more firefighters were injured. So let's join in on the news conference.
So CAL FIRE resources responded to the fire last night about 10:30 p.m. Report of a structure fire on Bear Canyon Road. When our firefighters arrived, the fire had begun to extend into the vegetation. This time, we're looking at about a 125-acre fire in about 150 homes. And I also have the incident commander here for the fire to talk about the operations and the current fire conditions. Rob Sherman.
Good morning.
Chief, can we get your name and spell for us?
Rob Sherman, S-H-E-R-M-A-N, Division Chief CAL FIRE. So currently we have about 250 personnel working on the fire. We have resources from as far away so far as from Tehama Glen and San Luis Obispo. We have Santa Clara, Alameda, Contra Costa County, and a lot of local agencies from Santa Clara and as well as Santa Cruz County. So the idea right now is we're going to be going direct, which means we're going to be working right on the fire's edge. As you can tell, that it's quite smoky behind me, and we've asked for early up helicopters and aircraft. So the idea is to hit it pretty hard with the aircraft, and then go ahead and hit it with the ground resources at the same time. So the air resources should be in the air within the hour, and once we get that, we'll have a better information on intel, on acreage, and all that kind of stuff that we can put together a better plan. Because at night we have a hard time looking at it and seeing exactly what we got. So this, although it is smoky, and so it'll be good that we get the aircraft up there. Right now the winds are very light, as you can tell. The fire was slope driven, a lot of heavy brush and a lot of timber in this area. So we're making access issues, and roads are very hard in this area, a lot of dirt roads, and that's what we're using as some of our containment lines.
And then the firefighter injury, what happened to that firefighter?
So we have several injuries. We had one that we know of that was an inmate of 50 feet and sustained a broken wrist, a possible broken wrist, and some facial lacerations being transported. We had 3 additional firefighters that are slipping in the steep terrain.
We've seen it progress along in this direction. The fire is still growing. Do you have a sense on how big the containment is and how big it is now?
I do not. I'm going to hold it at 125 until we get the air resources, and it'll give us a good estimate of what we got.
And containment?
We have 0% containment.
Any homes eminently threatened?
Eminently, no. We have, right now, we have the community of Las Cumbres that we've evacuated. They're one ridge over. We've sunk a bunch of resources in there for structure protection as well.
What's the challenges of fighting this fire other than it being remote?
Remote, steep terrain, a lot of what we call rollout. So you get fires and material that will roll down the hill and will start ignite fires down below you. So we do have those kind of issues. Steep terrain, just all sorts of things that go with that.
Will the heavy lifting be done by the aircraft because of this terrain?
What do you mean heavy lifting?
I mean, like most of the hammers, so to speak.
The of the water goes down through the trees. It's more of a direct than the air tankers, right? So, but we do in conjunction with that, and you always have to have a good ground attack when air support is there, because they put the water, the retardant on the fire, then good ground attack will come back and help strengthen that.
What about the weather conditions?
Weather conditions right now, I haven't looked at the weather for a while. They're light, the winds are light. Last RHs I heard dropped 4% when we did it, I think at 3 o'clock in the morning, which was at 20%. So RHs are between 16 and 20% right now.
So how is that? Is that helping us feel on low humidity? Obviously, it's an issue, but the calm winds, it's got to be a relief for you guys.
Yeah, luckily the winds aren't there yet, but think about it. Over the last week and a half, 10 days, we've had north
here to handle this fire, and can you draw additional resources?
So far, everything that we've ordered, we've had fills on.
How many firefighters?
Around 225, 250 right now. Anything else?
Biggest concerns going forward? I mean, we've got any weather concerns, winds, I know rain possibly coming on Thursday.
Correct, rain coming in on Thursday. I don't know if it's going to reach down this far. I haven't seen the morning weather report yet. Biggest concern, life safety, firefighter, and civilian safety as well.
The fact you've had 5 firefighters injured already, I mean, are you guys saying anything to these firefighters, or is there anything that can be done really to prevent it when they're fighting in this type of terrain?
Yeah, it's really interesting. All the injuries occurred in the daylight, not in the dark time. So they know, we've given them a briefing on what to look for, what to be responsible for, and also what to watch out for. So that's what it is.
So you said they happened in the daylight? They didn't happen overnight?
Just the ones that fell down the ravine and the one that had the couple that slipped. Smoke inhalation happened at night, but the ones that were tripping happened just right at the turn of daylight. Any other questions?
Injury happened at night from the one gentleman who was
There was no major injuries.
No major injury, but the
correct. Right at night, right at that dusk when we were starting to turn in to daylight.
I heard those 3 firefighters might have been injured trying to rescue the one firefighter. Is that true?
I have no.
Are these rescues, or are they coming from the north bay?
What do you mean?
The rescues that are here that are fighting this fire?
The ones that. As I said before, we have local and non-local. We have some from Tehama Glen. We have some from San Luis Obispo. All those that I mentioned are currently here. Anything else? What I'm going to do next, please.
Area. They have been able to access it with troops on the ground, firefighters on the ground, walking around, and that's how some of the firefighters got hurt in the overnight hours. If you're just joining us now, a total of 5 firefighters injured. One was an inmate helping with the fire efforts. That person had smoke inhalation, taken to the hospital. Then right before sunrise, so it was a little bit later, although it's dark at that time, one firefighter on the ground doing battles or foot patrol in that area trying to fight it from the ground. That person fell down a ravine. About 50 firefighters were hurt, but according to the chief with CAL FIRE, those 3 should be evaluated at the scene and does not need, or they don't need to be taken to the hospital. This fire, the good news is the acreage remains the same. 125 acres burned, and that it exploded to 30 acres, and then it jumped to 125 acres. Right now, where we're sitting, 0% containment. Fortunately, no fatalities, no homes eminently threatened, but they were able to get ahead of the fire. Told some people, about 150 people in the area, you have to evacuate now before the fires get too close, and at that time it'll be all out panic and chaos. When they were able to evacuate these people, these are windy, steep roads, and there are a lot of residents out there at the checkpoints looking at the firefighting efforts, looking looking at what's going on, trying to get updates from the CAL FIRE crews that are still arriving at the scene. That number jumped. In the overnight hours, they had a handful of firefighters. That hillside, that's called Bear Creek Canyon, I should say, and how rugged that is. CAL FIRE said the winds are not a problem, right? And that's what they were dealing with in the North Bay, the winds, which carried the embers all over the place. So the firefighters were just racing around trying to put out the fire. It appears that the fire is in this area, so the winds are not carrying the embers. And I can hear a helicopter getting close to us again. So maybe my microphone will be able to pick the helicopter. Area that's just as dry but untouched by the fire, well, that area catches on fire as well. And that's why they will be here for quite some time. And helicopter continues to pick up water, comes back to this area, tries to put out. Yolia Sevens, can you zoom in? There's that helicopter, guys. They said at 9 o'clock they would do that. They're up even earlier than that, dropping some fire retardant down to the water of how large this fire is. So 125, but that number as far as acres expected to go up as well. Back to you.
Hey, Will, as we look at your shot, where are the homes in relation to that? Not the one that burned down, but the 100 homes that are clustered in a certain area and then they evacuated.
It appears that those homes are on the other side of the ridge. So there you see on the treetops there, those homes are to the right and on the other side of the ridge. Those are the homes, that's where the homes were evacuated. There are homes all over the place in the Santa Cruz Mountain, right? This is Boulder Creek. It's not like, obviously, so this is just, this home pops out of nowhere. You drive along the roadway and then a home pops up just like this.
Wow.
So it's all over the place, all over these mountains. So we're talking about 150 homes. That's the good part. 0% containment, but they're throwing everything that they possibly can at it. And he mentioned to me a little bit earlier this morning, of course, the North Bay fires are making international news, but the good news is it's starting to scale down just a bit. And if they need to call those firefighters to drive down from the North Bay, that is available to them as well. Daria?
All right. Thanks a lot, Will. Yeah, that's
a week after wildfires began their deadly march across Northern California, you gotta go! The sergeant behind this body camera footage is sharing his story.
I was scared beyond reason. I'm not a fireman. I've never been trained to be a
for helping a couple into their car.
We did as much as we could, but that's what wears heavy on us is what did we miss?
The latest death came today. A contract firefighter killed when a water tender truck rolled off a road. Firefighters are making progress, attacking stubborn flames from above, blocking their... It's why crews dig perimeters.
And we have somebody who wasn't so lucky that is moving into our guest house today.
Peter Lang's house was destroyed because he focused his energy on...
40,000 people are still evacuated tonight, and officials say it'll...
It now looks like this.
Safer environment, but Mother Nature brought wind.
This neighborhood is woven within California's wildland, a prime example of the state's suburban sprawl. In 1960, there were 766 homes within the perimeter of the Tubbs fire, compared to more than 6,000 in 2010.
I don't think anybody would have ever guessed that we'd have a wildland fire that would move through the volume of hotels, commercial buildings, restaurants, areas where there's zero to little to no landscaping. It burned through all that.
Thousands of evacuation orders have been lifted, but in wildland areas like this, it could take days, if not weeks, before the rebuilding can start.
Dianne Feinstein and Kamala Harris toured the hardest hit areas while emphasizing that conditions could change at any moment.
To the authorities as you hear it through the media, and don't try to freelance on your own.
That said, even with the optimism, it is another red flag warning day, and the fire crews on the front lines will be keeping a close eye out on those winds. And if they stir up, that could present potential problems. Also, this is an area that is driven by its wine industry. At least 8 wineries were destroyed by these fires earlier this week. The long-term economic impact of that, Leland, still not known because so many parts of this region still under evacuation. Leland.
Yeah, oftentimes it takes a few weeks to actually figure out the long-term impacts. Will Carr there, Santa Rosa, California. Will, thank you.
as thousands had to flee their homes for these wildfires. We're getting new video of the harrowing escapes made by, this case was a couple in the middle of the night. They were roommates, Mike Veen and Leighton Smith. They threw their dogs into their car. They took off through the flames and the smoke. This is the Cascade Fire near them. They captured their escape on this video.
We shouldn't be driving into this gorge. Oh my God. It's this meadow, dude. I can't breathe. Come on, Expedition, baby. You can do it, girl. We're just gonna come this way. This is our only option, dude. We couldn't have gone back. There was no way of going back. It was gonna blow right through our house.
My eyes are burning, man.
My eyes are burning too, dude, but we still got oxygen, so we're not dead yet.
We're on the road. We're on the road.
Dude, bust through that gate if we have to. I can't get out again, I guarantee it. My hands were burning going out there.
I can't see. I can't see.
Oh my God, dude. The straight caught on fire. The road's on fire.
I know.
Mike, Leighton, and their dogs did drive through that gate. They made it out unharmed. Their home, their possessions were all lost in the fire. Multiply this story by thousands, you get an idea of the devastating impact of these fires.
Tonight, the heroes and the bravery in California. Vicki Walker hugging this firefighter to say thank you. Firefighters across California saving lives, homes, and so many family treasures. And this image, the mail truck still stopping at mailboxes, a haunting moment, but still a moment of dedication. Then there was the iron worker who lost everything, his home.
Every house was on fire, including mine.
Dana Hansen's story was on the local news that night, and someone 50 miles away was watching.
I heard iron worker, and I looked over, and I caught his last name.
Her son was also an iron worker. She lost him to cancer 2 years ago. She had always saved her son's tools, and she called up Dana and said, come get them.
Dana?
Yes.
How are you?
Okay. How are you?
I'm good.
Inside, her son's tools given to Dana.
Means a lot to me.
Well, I only get you back to work.
She wants to get him back to work, and California back.
From Northern California's massive wildfires, 41 people are confirmed dead. They range in age from 14 to 100. Among them is a driver whose truck overturned while delivering water to the fire lines. The wildfires destroyed some 5,700 homes and businesses. Maria Villarreal is in Santa Rosa, where a husband held his wife for hours in a pool, trying to keep her alive. Maria, good morning.
Well, good morning. Search and rescue woman who says her parents took refuge from the wildfires in a swimming pool for several hours. Only one of them made it out alive.
It was escape or die. It was
Monica's 50th wedding anniversary.
Out of the house, and they've died in a neighbor's house. So
about when and where they use cadaver dogs to make sure they stay safe in this process as well. Gail?
Baby! Oh my God! Hey, baby! Oh my God!
Everything is good. I'm not going to walk through this. It's pretty hot.
Izzy's here! Oh my God! Izzy! Oh my God! Hey, baby! Oh my God!
Everything is gone.
Izzy! Izzy! Izzy, come here, baby! Oh my God! Izzy! Oh my God! Hey, baby! Oh my God!
1 week after wildfires erupted in Northern California, more than 200 people are still listed as missing. The official death toll is at least 40. 75,000 remain under evacuation orders. 5,700 homes and businesses are destroyed. Chris Martinez is in Santa Rosa.
But we are making a tremendous progress out there.
Massive plumes of smoke still blanket California's wine country as fire crews continue their relentless assault from above and on the ground. Hard-hit areas like Santa Rosa, a lucky few are finally going home as officials begin to lift evacuation orders.
Left of the house.
Jack Weaver returned to his mother's home expecting to recover the body of the family's dog Izzy that ran away when the Weavers fled the fire.
Izzy, come here, baby!
He instead had this joyous reunion.
Hey, baby!
It was one of the greatest moments of my life. She came bounding out, and it was elation, tears, happiness.
Other evacuees are finding refuge at area businesses like Cully Williamson's restaurant. For days, many with nowhere else to go have gathered here for comfort and food, free of charge.
We just thought if we can get open, we can at least be a place where people can come. No, I don't. I'm hoping sometime next week, but I don't know.
Investigators say it could be weeks before they can pinpoint the exact cause of these fires. Elaine officials believe
they believe that they're getting the upper hand on these fires because the weather is now favorable for the first time in a week. Take a listen to what they just said.
A week ago, this started as a nightmare, and the day we've dreamed of has arrived.
But there are still more than 200 people missing, and the death toll could continue to go up. So the cadaver dogs will be back out navigating these neighborhoods again today. Here in Santa Rosa, it really looks like more of a wasteland. The area is still evacuated, 75 more letting people go back in. This weekend, Governor Jerry Brown and Senators Dianne Feinstein and Kamala Harris toured the hardest hit areas while emphasizing that conditions could change at any moment.
Listen to whatever the police chief or the fire chief tells you. The fire is unpredictable, depending upon the winds, depending on various factors. So this is a matter of
keeping a close eye out on those winds, and if they stir up, that could present potential problems. Also, this is an area that is driven by its wine industry. At least 8 wineries were destroyed by these fires earlier this week. The long-term economic impact of that, Leland, still not known because so many parts of this region still under evacuation. Leland.
Yeah, oftentimes it takes a few weeks to actually figure out the long-term impacts. Will Carr there, Santa Rosa, California, Will, thank you.
As thousands had to flee their homes for these wildfires, we're getting new video of the harrowing escapes made by, this case was a couple in the middle of the night. They were roommates, Mike Veen and Leighton Smith. They threw their dogs into their car. They took off through the flames and the smoke. This is the Cascade Fire near them. They captured their escape on this video.
We shouldn't be driving into this gorge. Oh my God. It's this meadow, dude. I can't breathe. Come on, Expedition, baby. You can do it, girl. We're just gonna come this way. I guarantee it. Fire and I know.
Mike, Leighton, and their dogs did drive through that gate. They made it out unharmed. Their home, their possessions were all lost in the fire. Multiply this story by thousands, you get an idea of the devastating impact of these fires.
At the various images that we've seen coming through this weekend with fires still burning and neighborhoods devastated. And as we said, the pieces will have to start getting picked up. Starting today for...
You can still see flames in the dark over your shoulder. Now in the daylight, it looks like smoke.
It's smoky business as far as work is concerned, believe it or not. And I'll show that to you in just a little bit. So let me step out of the way and let me zoom in and show you what's going on. So you can see there's the fire right there, and it still continues to burn. Although at this point, it looks like now it's dying down just a bit, smoky because the wind is starting to pick up a little bit, but not too bad, especially what we sky, a ball of fire. Well, it's like a rugged area under racing down Highway 29. I would imagine doing the same thing as the other crews did, make a right turn and try to make it up that hill. As far as
closer to the people. So the good news is that it's not close to the people in the homes.
Belong to one of their...
Hey guys, good morning. So I actually have a little bit of updated information. I'm with Dominic Polito with CAL FIRE, and he has new numbers. So let's just get right into it. What are the new numbers and what can we say?
We're at a total acreage of 97,781 for the entire complex. As far as the Nuns Fire, where we are right now, we're at 48,627. And a lot of the other numbers are the same as far as the number of personnel on the fire and whatnot.
And we have gained some more containment of basically all of...
Increasing on the Oakmont, but it has grown in size as well.
Okay, so is it a lot of good news? What are we looking forward to?
Okay, so the good news is the handle on structure protection. In the beginning, there was no one available. And so the few local crews were working really hard to do what they could, but without the numbers, it's very difficult. The things that would catch the house on fire, and they're prepping all the structures.
So good news for the families in this area. Should they still be alert? You know, you just never know, or is it kind of you're on the safe side now?
No, you should always.
When we're on these 24-hour shifts, the hardest thing for me is trying to stay awake as I'm driving. And that was one of the guys that I spoke to yesterday. So I don't know if that had anything to do or to play in that accident, but definitely the firefighters here were to see it because there is so much smoke. But that doesn't mean that it's not bad. It burned over or about 50,000 acres. So that is still a very big number. Right here where I'm standing, I'm sort of in between, and the Oakmont houses are supposed to be evac area. They're asking you
know that the water truck, the water tender, is still at the location, so this area will be shut down for quite some time as they take measurements. Hope to talk to anybody who might be near the area, although that's highly unlikely. It appears that he was the only person in the water truck at the time, but we understand that he was a firefighter contracted with CAL FIRE to do the water service, hopefully to get more information on exactly what happened. And at the very
designated counties that get FEMA, and even your property tax, your home's burned down, you don't have to pay your.
1 week after wildfires erupted in Northern California, more than 200 people are still listed as missing. The official death toll is at least 40. 75,000 remain under evacuation orders. 5,700 homes and businesses are destroyed. Chris Martinez is in Santa Rosa.
Once sprint,
but we are making a tremendous progress out there.
Massive plumes of smoke still blanket California's wine country, finally going.
These fires earlier this week, the long-term economic impact of that, Leland, still not known because so many parts of this region still under evacuation. Leland.
Yeah, oftentimes it takes a few weeks to actually figure out the long-term impacts. Will Carr there, Santa Rosa, California, will thank you.
As thousands had to flee their homes for these wildfires, we're getting new video of the harrowing escapes made by, this case was a couple in the middle of the night. They were roommates, Mike Veen and Leighton Smith. They threw their dogs into their car. They took off through the flames and the smoke. This is the Cascade Fire near them. They captured their escape on this video.
We shouldn't be driving into this gorge. Oh my God. It's this meadow, dude. I can't breathe. Come on, Expedition, baby. You can do it, girl. But we still got oxygen, so we're not. My hands were burning going out there. I can't see. I can't see. God, dude. Just get caught on fire.
Starting today.
See, there's the fire right there from what we saw last month.
Because that's where that fire is. If you take a look at the video that we captured overnight, you'll be able to have a better picture of those flames. That is the Nuns Fire. It's burned about 50,000 acres in this area, and it's only about 40% contained. It's a better number than what we've been reporting all week, but it's still, you know, not even halfway there. The fire activity in the mountain behind me is moderate, so a lot better than active, but they still have a lot of work to be done. Here in this area, the Oakmont fire is very nearby as well. It's almost 600.
Those with engines, the strike team was driving and ran 5 water lines. Homes that burned here belong to one of their.
Hey guys, good morning. So I actually have a little bit of updated information. I'm with Dominic Polito with CAL FIRE, and he has new numbers. So let's just get right into it. What are the new numbers and what can we say?
We're at a total acreage of 97,781 for the entire complex. As far as the Nuns Fire, where we are right now, we're at 48,627. And a lot of the other numbers are the same as far as the number of personnel on the fire and whatnot.
And we have gained some more containment of basically all of the fires except the Oakmont.
Correct. Yeah. The current containment, the Tubbs Fire, we're at 70%. The Pocket Fire, we're at 40%. The Nuns Fire, we're at 50%. The Oakmont's at 15%. So we are actually increasing on the Oakmont, but it has grown in size as well.
Okay. So is it a lot of good news?
Those have died down, and so that's in our favor. Unfortunately, today it's going to be hotter, and the precipitation and the percentage of humidity is still very low. So the fire conditions are still very available, but they're not wind driven. So that will give us a heads up on attacking the fire.
And tell me about the guys up there. You know, there's so many of them who are putting their lives in danger for all of us. Are they tired? What's the status on the crews?
Yeah, they're tired, but they're
assessing, and are getting those numbers. Is it good news also in terms of the structures and what has been damaged and what they're being able to look at now?
Yeah, with the increase in personnel, we are getting a better handle on structure protection. Each structure, with hoses wrapped around, they've scratched line, they've cleaned out all the extra ornamental vegetation, the things that would catch the house on fire, and they're prepping all the bags, have everything prepared to leave if you get that evacuation notice.
When we're on these 24-hour shifts, the hardest thing for me is trying to stay awake as I'm driving. A 24-hour shift and driving was definitely the hardest for them.
Plumes of smoke still blanket Kara returned to his mother's home, expecting to recover the body of the family's dog Izzy.